Everyone talks about training after 40 years of age. What they don't talk about is training on top of a physical job, something like plastering or bricklayer or something like that. You know, waking up sore, hands shot to bits, legs tired, still needing to show up and work, and in training. That's proper graft. And you know, at the end of the day, it's not optimal. It's just the reality, and it's how I'm navigating it. Only plasterers are really going to understand the graft that's involved with plastering and how tough it can actually be. Hands absolutely messed up, you know, dry from the plaster, being on them all day. You know, where you've been holding that trowel for like 6 hours, training up, putting gear on the wall. Only plasterers are really going to understand how that feels. Your rotator cuff or your shoulder absolutely knackered, bottom part of your back absolutely in bits, where you've been bending over buckets all day, carrying gear, you know, out the van, up the stairs if you've got to work, you know, in a bedroom on someone's house. You know, those bags weigh 25 kilograms a pop, and they don't sound, it's not too heavy, but when you've got all of the other stuff on top of that as well, early mornings, like 5 AM starts, you know, builders, merchants, all that sort of stuff. It definitely plays a toll on your body, without a shadow of a doubt. And the reality is once I've done the day job, once I come home and I think about training, whether that's running or lifting, and particularly in the morning as well, if I'm going down that road, you know, I don't start sessions feeling ready. I start them feeling human. I think that's the best way of putting it. Like knackered. I can sense my mortality. And I think the old saying rings true to me a lot of the time. That kind of, I don't know where I heard this, and I can't remember where I read it or heard it, but it goes along the lines of, it doesn't get easier, you just get stronger. And I keep saying that to myself whenever I'm working, whether it's, you know, doing a half marathon or lifting weights or plastering, whatever I'm doing from a physical side, I always keep saying that to myself. Like my philosophy, it keeps ringing over and over in my brain. It doesn't get easier, you just get stronger. And I keep saying that to myself. It's never going to be easy. You just got to keep moving, keep going. And Einstein said it as well. I think he says people are like bicycles. He says if they stop, they fall over. And again, that kind of rings true to me a lot of the time. So a lot of the time when you're over 40, you really kind of sense your mortality, I feel. And a lot of the time you forget that. You kind of think to yourself that you're 25. I mean, I had a labourer working with me not too long ago, and he was 17, 18. And I was looking at the way he was moving and talking, and I just thought to myself, like, I'm old. I'm like 44. And when you've got someone standing in front of you that's got their whole life in front of them and all the experience that you've got, it's quite sobering. And at the same time, you know, I've got to remind myself that I'm not 25 anymore. So when I'm like, you know, chasing personal records and PRs and all that sort of stuff, I've got to remember that I'm not 25 anymore. And if I'm training, say, on a Saturday and a Sunday, and I've got like a bedroom to plaster the following week, and I haven't got a labourer with me, it's kind of ringing in the back of my mind when I'm doing that run, like that 10-mile run, say, or, you know, if I'm running further than that, whatever it may be at that particular weekend, I'm kind of thinking about what the week looks like in front of me. Because the reality is that if you've got an office job or you sit in front of a computer and all that sort of jazz, you're really not going to be able to understand what it feels like to, say, train at the weekend when you've been on the tools all week. It's just impossible unless you actually do it, particularly with plastering. And that's the thing with money, you can't really like control it to a degree. is kind of out of your control. I mean, you can only do so much with your hands. You can only be in so many spots at once. The thing you can actually control is the way you think and the way you move. They're the two things that you can control. And that's, again, what I keep saying to myself. I can control the way I think, and I can control what I do with my body, what goes in it, if I go for a run or down the gym. Everything else is kind of out of my control. And yeah, I think people kind of forget that. So for me, I do a lot of zone 2 running, which basically means your heart rate's kind of in between like 120, 130, really easy. You know, as you're running, you're kind of breathing through your nasal passages. You can talk and do a lot of that. That's basically for my cardiovascular. I also do like a lot of lifting. I lift a lot of weights, and not because I want to be looking like Arnold Schwarzenegger or to stand on a stage in a silly pair of pants and all that sort of stuff. The reason I'm doing that is kind of like an insurance policy for when I'm in my 60s, 70s and 80s, because I know I'm going to be at that age. And when I'm at that age, I want to be able to get up a flight of stairs. I want to be able to get on a plane. I want to be able to go on holiday, drive my car, van, go for a walk with the kids along the seafront. I want to be able to do that stuff. I don't want to be immobile. And recovery is really important as well. I think for me, I've only just learned over the last year just how important recovery is. So I've stopped drinking because ultimately booze absolutely kills your sleep, which I probably found that out about a year ago. And subsequently, that's the reason I've stopped boozing, just because I just don't want it to interfere with my sleep, because recovery is so important, particularly when you're on the tools. I think rest is really underestimated, just how powerful it is. You know, all of my mates that are on the tools, I always say the same thing. If we're chatting, you know, if we're on site or we're doing a job together or whatever, it's like, I've got to start training again. I've got to get in the gym. I've got to start eating healthy. I never, ever, ever hear anyone talk about, I've got to rest this weekend. I never hear any of my mates say that, I've got to rest. And again, you know, if you're 25, 30 watching this, then yeah, but as soon as you get past that marker, you know, 40, the big 40, and you start looking at 50, you start to sense your mortality a little bit. At the end of the day, I'm not trying to win workouts. I'm just trying to survive the years at this point. While still pushing myself, I'd say. I just want to see how far I can push myself. I think, you know, if you stop pushing yourself, you might as well admit yourself into the old people's home straight away, right now.